All right, so now we're going to look at two more types of loops, the while loop and the do while loop. And these, along with the for loop, are kind of like old school ways of doing iteration. Now that we have high order array methods, we have for each, and then there's also other loops like for in and for of, which I'm going to go over as well. But it still is essential that you learn these because these are like fundamentals, and not just in JavaScript, in just about every language. So with a while loop, it's a little different because all that we put in here is the condition. When we initialize and increment the variable, we don't do it within these parentheses. This is just the condition. So I'm going to initialize the I variable outside of the while loop. And then in here, I'll put the condition, say less than or equal to 20. And then I'll console log, let's just put a string number and then concatenate that number. Now this can be easy to forget the increment and then have an infinite loop because it's not as obvious. Whereas a for loop, you know you have the three parts to pass in. Here, you just have to remember to increment. So let's save that, and now it's going to print out 0 to 20. Okay, so that's the syntax of a while loop. Now, for many cases, you could use either a while or a for loop and achieve the same result. As you can see, it's very similar. It's just different syntax. But a common rule that many programmers follow is to use a for loop when you know the number of times that you want the loop to run, and then to use a while loop when the number of times the loop will run is unknown. Okay, that's not a mandatory convention or anything, but that's something a lot of people do. We can also use while loops to loop over arrays, just like we could use for loops. So I'm just going to comment this one out. And then let's say const array, and we'll set that to, let's say 10, 20, 30, 40. And then in here, we want our condition expression. So let's say while I is less than the array dot length, then we're going to console log and we'll say array. We want the index to be the I variable. And then this is really important. You want to add your increment or you're going to get an infinite loop. So if we save that, now we're going to see 10, 20, 30, 40. So it's printing out the values of this array. If I add 50, that'll get added as well. Now another thing that we can do is nest while loops, just like we can for loops. So let's say nesting while loops, and we'll do the same thing we did before. We'll have the multiplication thing. So let's use I. So we'll say as long as I is less than or equal to, let's do 5. And then in here we'll just console log, we'll say number and plus whatever that I variable is. And then in here, I'm going to nest another while loop, so I need another variable, right? So we need to initialize another variable. So I'll use j and set that to 1. And then let's say while, and we want to say while j is less than or equal to, and this is for the multiplication part, so let's do 5. We'll do up to times 5. And then in here, we'll do our console log, and we'll make this a string where we can say I times j is equal to the expression of I times j. Now this is really important. We need to remember to increment both j and I. So let's say j plus plus, and then back outside into the parent loop, we want to do I plus plus. All right, so let's go ahead and try that. And now you'll see it's going to loop through 5, right? 1 through 5. Actually, it's going to start at 0 because of this. We can set that to 1. So now it's going to start at 1, and it's going to show 1 times 1 through 5, then 2, 2 times 1 through 5, 3, 4, and then 5. Okay, so that's how we can nest a while loop. Now, do while loops are a little different because the do while loop will always run at least once, even if the condition is false. So the answer to the question, when would I want to use a do while loop, is when you always want the block of code to run at least once, even if the condition is never met. So let me show you what I mean. I'm going to comment this out. And then let's say do. So this is the syntax. We say do, no parentheses after it, just curly braces. And then whatever we want to happen, let's say console log and number, and concatenate that. And then we want to increment, so I++. And then here is where we're going to add while. And then that's where we want to add our condition. So let's say while I is less than or equal to 20. Okay, and I don't know why I opened parentheses here. Curly braces, we don't want those. All right, so this is a do while loop. So let's run this, and as you can see, we get 1 through 20. Remember, this is set to 1. Now, like I said, the thing with this is this code right here is always going to run once, even if this is never true. So if I were to come up here and set I to 21, this condition is never met. However, if I save this, I get number 21. So it runs this code here no matter what. So that's the big difference with this. If I uncomment this, where is it? This right here, where it says I is less than or equal to 21, and I comment out the do while and save, we get nothing, right? Because this condition here is never met. This is 21, so this is not, whoops, this is 21, so this is never going to run, or this code is never going to run. Do while, it's going to run once, then it's going to check and see if it's to run again. So that's the big difference. And you can also use break and continue statements with these loops as well, just like you can with a for loop.